You're listening to the Cloud Lounge Podcast, a show about business, technology, and all that jazz. Brought to you by Soft Landing, a leading IT service provider in Canada. Let's get started. Here's your host, Zeshan Randhawa.
Welcome to Cloud Lounge. I'm your host, Zeshan. And today's topic is truly close to my heart. Today we're talking about what it takes to create a modern intranet to better serve your organization's digital workplace. So now more than ever, having a robust intranet is incredibly important. A good intranet really can be the center of your employees' digital universe. I've seen a tremendous rise in demand for intranets in the last 2 years, and it's always usually the same story. Since moving into the hybrid workplace, it's a lot more difficult to engage with employees, let them know what's happening within the organization, promoting culture, disseminating important documents and content across all users. And this isn't just limited to workers that sit at a desk. Engaging with frontline workers, that is a story that I'm seeing more and more often as well. So whether it be, grocery store, retail workers sharing display ideas across stores, or your mobile sales workforce just having access to key documents like statements of work or work orders or what have you. Now, intranets are nothing new. We at Soft Landing have been helping organizations dream up and implement intranets for well over a decade now. But for many organizations, over the years, the internet has turned from this living, breathing, useful thing to something that is stagnant or out of date or has no clear ownership, something that's just kind of fallen off. And there are some staggering stats, again, care of Igloo Software, that back up the importance of a robust intranet. And I'm talking about 51% of employees have avoided sharing a document with a colleague simply because they couldn't find it or thought it would be difficult to find at all. This is the highest percentage that's ever been recorded. And remote workers continue to struggle as well, with nearly 60% missing out on important information because it was communicated in person. And for some organizations, the majority of their user base are remote workers. So you're missing out on a big demographic there. So let's get past the buzzwords and let's talk about, what is an actual modern intranet? What fundamental elements formulate a powerful modern intranet? For a successful intranet, in our eyes, you should have incorporated 3 pillars. First, your intranet should essentially connect people. An effective intranet becomes a vehicle to connect employees to one another. Very simple. Secondly, your intranet should promote your organization's culture, essentially promoting what is important and valuable to the organization, whether it be a strong focus on health and safety or a key spotlight on employee wellness. The intranet becomes really that lens through which employees can see what matters the most to the organization. And lastly, your intranet really should promote communication. You want your intranet to be a key tool for organization communication, disseminating news and events throughout the organization, and ideally providing targeted communication to users. And really a next level intranet also allows the organization to source feedback from employees and turn it into actual action. Furthermore, let's talk about what puts the modern in a modern intranet. So for me, it's 4 key things. Your intranet should be accessible on any device, whether it's web or mobile-based. Your information on the intranet should be targetable and allowed to be personalized so an end user, an employee can kind of cut through the noise of information that they're receiving. It should have a robust user interface and experience. So whether it be if you're authoring content or consuming the content, you should get that modern interface experience. And lastly, you should be able to integrate business processes within your intranet itself. Now, I know many of you folks listening most likely have an intranet in some form or another within your organization, but how can you tell if you need to modernize this intranet? Let's see how many of these questions I throw at you, you're going to answer yes to. Do your users log in every day for your intranet? Do your users post, comment, or interact with your current intranet? Does your intranet draw users from across all departments, or is it certain pockets of your organization that are only using the intranet? And lastly, is your intranet truly mobile accessible? Do people have to jump through hoops on their mobile devices to get access to your intranet, or is it kind of a seamless experience? If you answered yes to some of these, well, maybe it's time to reimagine your intranet. To help me further explore this topic, I've enlisted the help of Pam Beaudoin. Pam is the senior Microsoft 365 advisor at West Fraser Timber, a diversified wood products company. They have more than 60 facilities across Canada, US, UK, and Europe. We've worked extensively with Pam, building modern apps, implementing governance, and alongside with other things, helping them roll out their intranet and establish some strategy around their modern intranet as well. Welcome, Pam.
Hi, Z. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. Well, Pam, I would love to start by having you tell us about West Fraser's intranet journey, kind of where you folks started and where you are today.
Well, thanks. So we started our intranet about 1998, built on Front Page. And then we moved into Lotus Notes, an intranet built on Lotus Notes in about 2004. And then we moved off of that into SharePoint Online Classic about 2014. And then we did a major project to move off of Lotus Notes, and we've landed now with our modern SharePoint intranet in 2019 is when we upgraded. So it's been a long journey for sure.
Absolutely. Long journey with multiple platforms as a part of the journey as well. And today, Pam, the intranet is being used across the organization, various departments, and so on and so forth.
Yes. So we have one homepage for all of our employees. We have just shy of 11,000 employees, and we have one intranet homepage for all of them. So yes, it's very exciting.
And Pam, what were some of the elements of the new intranet when you did switch over from Lotus Notes to the modern interpretation? What were some of the elements that solidified it as kind of a modern intranet, which is kind of an essential part of those 11,000 employees on a day-to-day basis?
We used a few things. I would say the most modern is our newest rendition. We rely heavily on news actually. And so we'll create news in one location by one sort of business group and have that news surface throughout the intranet in various different locations, depending on kind of the security and depending on the metadata on that news. So that's been a pretty great tool. We also use Yammer, which is interesting. We've added that in kind of as a quick help and how to or ask a question, and that's been fairly successful. We also created something that we use employee resources. So really it's a one-stop shopping for employee resources, whether that be like application resources or IT help or HR resources, financials resources. It all kind of sits in one spot. And that's a pretty heavily used portion of our intranet for sure.
And yeah, you folks are definitely using the idea of kind of having or surfacing up information that's important to different types of users, since you guys do have such a large kind of a large and diverse kind of user group out there as well, right?
Yeah, and I think, that was a really important part of when we were developing it, mostly because if you go to an intranet and there's something up there that's not relevant to you, it's not very interesting and you'll get bored and you won't look at it. But if you go and you see things are relevant to you in your job role or your location, it starts to become relevant to you and important. And I think that's a key to success for sure.
So Pam, I'd love to hear what some of the hard lessons were as a part of these intranet planning and developments that you've been through.
One of the things we learned really was do not customize, do not customize, do not customize. As we moved into SharePoint Online are with Microsoft, and we've taken the risk, I guess, of working with them 100%. And they, as Microsoft Online or SharePoint Online upgrades, we upgrade and you roll with it. But if you are custom, depending on what you've done, you may get left behind. And so you tend to have a lot of work to go to play catch up. And it's difficult and it's hard for your users and for your content creators to understand that and to roll with that. But certainly that was a big lesson for us. And we found in our newer modern environment, we are simply using quote out of the box. And that's been way more successful. As things change and get adjusted from Microsoft, we can take advantage of them right away, or we're not stuck, if you will, with some of the custom code that we've got. So that's kind of a big deal for us for sure that we learned.
And sometimes that means, bending or slightly adjusting the needs or the requirements based on, again, what's available out of the box or using what's available out of the box in a fashion that, gets you maybe 90% of the way there.
Yeah, and certainly like that's been a conversation with our content creators. We've had to say, look, no, that we can't do that, or no, that's not possible. And maybe put that on the back burner and say, okay, we will watch for, as the technology changes, we'll see if that comes up and we'll let you know. But currently, we're not able to do that. And it's been, now that we just say that out loud, if you will, it's actually been pretty good because the users accept that and then we can move on. And it's been great.
Kind of been retrained to think that way.
Yeah, a little bit.
And Pam, what have been some of the positive side effects or byproduct of West Fraser actually having a modern intranet?
For us, I think the biggest thing, West Fraser traditionally is a very close-knit group. We are a large company, but we're kind of still run like a family company. So having a modern intranet with lots of information has really allowed us to remain close. That's a big part of our culture. We've been able to use the tools to just to spread that culture throughout the environment, especially during COVID as well, when we were not able to see each other. We started to take advantage of the internet to post information and post not just structured information, but using Yammer to post more social interactions using those parts has been very, very good for us. One of the other things that we found is that people use the internet to find information. Our searching has come up. We've done a bit of work on showing people how to search and how to find things, and they've been actually quite successful. And I think that's been really positive, enabling our employees to find information when they need it is very important. And I think that's a big deal for us. And it's a big deal for everyone. Rather than trying to search through your file system, the SharePoint search is quite significantly better.
So one of the things I see quite often is organizations kind of finding it hard to see who's going to be the internal owner or sustainer. What group will that be internally to the organization? I'd love to hear from you, Pam. What were or are some of the key user groups involved in the creation and then sustainment of the intranet as well?
So when we started our intranet, we involved our corporate communications group. They had a big part to play in developing the content and the structure, but we also pulled in safety and environment. West Fraser, safety is probably our number one mandate. Environment is probably number two. And so those three groups were probably the core in which we started with. When we moved a little bit further out, we started our IT customer service group, started to use the intranet to give like help and how to and little tips and tricks and just information on how to use IT services. And not only that, but how to use even Office 365. So that was a big thing. As we're starting to grow, some of our other departments have come on. Our woodlands forestry group is using it quite a bit. Our energy group has started to use it, our finance crew. So, we did start with a smaller community of departments, and now we've grown. And right now we're actually pushing and moving out into actually every single division will have a site or a place in the sun, as I like to call it, on our intranet. So it's growing quite a bit. And I think there's been a lot of departments. We started slow, and as people see the value, they've jumped on board, and we're just moving right along.
And I know you folks have spent a lot of time and effort in kind of coming up with targeted approaches to these different groups or business units as well, to making sure that they feel kind of comfortable in adopting the platform and giving them a little bit more of a kind of a personalized training experience and so on as well. That pretty important to the overall kind of rollout process for the internet as well?
For us, for sure, the OCM piece is big. We've had to give people a reason, I guess, the what's in it for me for each of these departments. And for safety, it's very important for them to have the safety regulations, the policies, the procedures, everything like that people need to do their daily work online, and so that they could have one authoritative location for that content. Especially with something like safety or an environment, it's not really, there isn't oh, well, we kind of got it. No, it's got to be exact. So it was very important for them to jump on board. So we worked really hard to not only train them, but to give them something that they could use with the document management facilities in SharePoint that they could use to do their daily business. And that's worked very well. But yes, a lot of training has gone on.
So Pam, this has all been great. And the final thing I'd love to hear from you, if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, what would you change in your planning and development of the intranet?
I think the biggest change that I would make is using an OCM team right from the get-go. We as IT people and even corporate communications, we think that we are giving enough information and enough details about what we're launching for people. But in reality, using a good, strong OCM team, they definitely can take your message and bring it to the next level. One of the reasons that we use an intranet at West Fraser is we want to have the safety and the environmental and the sustainability. We want to have that content available to people and available for our employees to consume, but they won't know it's there unless you tell them. And not necessarily, but that's kind of a big deal. And having the OCM team not only helped us get the content onto the system, but also helped us put the content onto the system in a way that it was consumable for the end users. That's a big difference than just putting the content out there. And they also helped us decide kind of timing on when we should deploy. So now, as we start to add other departments into the intranet, we do use the OCM team, and it's a big, we're quite successful because of it. Had we done that with our initial launches, I think we would have had people more on board a little bit faster and been able to see the value of what we're seeing now. That would be my biggest change.
Definitely sound advice. The whole organizational change management aspect is definitely key, alongside with all the features and functionality that you want to try rolling out. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Pam. We really do appreciate it, bringing in your insight, bringing in your experience, and what the journey has been for yourself in West Fraser.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's been great to share some of the things that we've done. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. An intranet can be a great tool in your organization's tool belt, a tool for promoting culture and allowing all your users, whether they're sitting at a desk or not, to feel part of the organization. Whether you have a thriving intranet or just starting to wrap your head around what one can look like within your organization, thank you for joining us today. Until next time, take care.